Welcome to Prime Suspects, alongside Adam Bjorn and Prime Sports co-founder Joe Brennan Jr. I'm your host, Matt Landis. Guys, it's game week for college football teams across the country. So, Adam, let's take a peek behind the curtain at Prime Sports and BetCris ahead of the season kicking off. Tell us what the preparation process looks like for your teams, including how college football prep might differ from prep to trade the NFL.
Well, I think the college football, again, the information's a lot more scarce. The professionals have a lot more access and probably a head start on a bunch of stuff. The key is the data. Live betting is what ultimately rules the roost these days, and more is it taking a bigger part of the market share on a game. And thankfully, we got a taste of it last week. TX data feed is spot on. If you don't have it, you need to go get it. Best on the market. There's my little spiel. I mean, it's live betting, as many games as possible, pre-game, trying to do the whole board, not going nuts on limits, just take the bet, move the line, just as we usually do every week, every game. But I expect this is really, I think, the first year that there's really been a true good data set for live betting on the college football. So I expect to see expansive growth for all the brands. I mean, I know there's others out there using it, pushing more product. So I think collectively, whatever states report college football breaking down and various sort of companies that do it, I think we'll see a real growth in college football betting this year. Expanded playoffs, while that kills the rest of sort of the bowls as becoming, mediocrity and less important. I think it's a big season ahead in the college football.
Sounds like live betting is going to be a big growth driver to overall handle. Are there any other key factors that play into your thought process when you think about how you may expect college football handle to grow this season compared to last season?
I mean, they're all trying to do bigger TV deals. They're all trying to get more on TV. There's more data coverage. There's just more coverage in general. And I think it's becoming less and less people saying, no, I shouldn't bet on college football. It's Saturday. It's a full day of Saturday. They're trying to expand it. They broaden it out so you have as much coverage as possible over, 12, 14 hours or something like that. And more sports, including college sports, are just getting created for TV, for media, which ultimately means for betting.
And Joe, with that in mind, what would you say are the main storylines you're following across the college football landscape as kickoff approaches?
Yeah, just echoing some of what Adam was saying regarding the beginning of the college season is obviously very unique compared to the NFL. You have so many of the power conference teams that are playing out of conference. They're doing their early season schedule fillers, where you'll see like Alabama against Birmingham State Teachers College. Not a whole lot of value in that one unless you're betting the money line. And which a lot of people are doing, particularly squares are coming in and they're doing a lot of heavy money line favorite parlay action, round robin type stuff. You just see that more and more. But I do think it's cool when you see, I'm going to put in a plug for TX odds here as well, in no small part because Joe Brennan Jr. is currently working in their Chicago office on their live day of the scouting for college football. But almost by necessity, that seems to be where the betting has to go if you're going to try and find value. I love hearing people bang that phrase around on all of the corporate betting shows on ESPN and Fox Sports. But there's no other way. When you look at it, it's so hard to really see where the numbers should be so early on in the season with so many, inherently out of balance interconference games. When you look at it, how many games are on the board this week that are Notre Dame, Miami, where you have a couple of really strong programs that are going to do it. They're going to do this in week one, right? So it is interesting to see the capabilities starting to increase at the college level. All sorts of stuff that has to sort itself out because college football, from a governance, who do I go and make a deal with so I can get the data for these markets and things like that. The NCAA, they don't control the data. They don't control the product, really, of college football. That all comes down to the conferences, and the conferences are all over the map. So even though it's quite of a mess, we know the sharpest guys out there are betting college football, not the NFL. So if you're an aspiring young sharp out there, you probably want to be paying more attention on Saturdays than necessarily you want to be on Sundays.
And I'll add on top of that, the transfer portal. I mean, these colleges are becoming professional sport leagues. Like, they have salary caps that they can spend on players to get them through the transfer portal. I've seen more and more of this recently, and understanding how they have X millions to spend on players and they're drawing them in, through these channels. So that completely changes the dynamic where teams that had 0 to no chance a year ago, massive transfer portal, they build up a team that's competitive at a different level. So there's a hell of a lot more work needed to be put into who are the quarterbacks, who are the key players, and all those kind of things, prepping for this season versus any other season previously.
Well, from upcoming games to be played between the lines to state gaming regulators going on the offensive against CFTC regulated sports event contracts they consider to be coloring outside the lines. Adam, with the news since our last recording that FanDuel is officially entering the prediction market business, how do you see this playing out in terms of a potential domino effect where other U.S. operators also feel forced into launching their own prediction markets?
I mean, it was inevitable. That Flutter would go in to discover this sort of space. Although there's been no mention of sports, lots of S&P trading and trading on gold and those kind of things, but no actual sort of message of we're tackling the sports market. The CEO of FanDuel they're chasing eyeballs. They're chasing more verticals. They're just trying to expand their footprint in an area that's just chaotic and a madhouse right now. And no one really knows. Plus, Flutter have 2.5 decades as an exchange, with Betfair. They have all the knowledge, the skill set, the software, the understanding, the market making, all those kind of things. And then also tossing around a Kelce partnership. It's been, mentioned here and there and multiple times. Then it's inevitable that the regulators are going to come out and start barking on the other side. It's a bit of a shit show, but this is how they play it out here when you have sort of an overarching governance sitting on top of a bunch of little governances. And, when are they going to stop swimming against the tide? When are they just going to accept what it is and where it's going? When are they going to understand that if they're going to keep raising taxes and all these things, like, why bother being a state regulated sports book? The unregulated market is winning. We're seeing it in America's own backyard. The gray market has come on shore, and more, the big bad wolves of the regulators saying, if you do it, we'll take away your license, and then suddenly you're free to do it. So, what's the point? It's madness. I wish they'd just kind of all get in a room, understand that they can't win this game. And if they keep raising taxes, they're putting themselves behind the 8 ball. And Ohio coming out, they've been really good to deal with, as Prime having a license there, as Planet Tech has a provider there, but they're getting a lot of it wrong. Their governors come out and getting a lot of it wrong. And this is just another sort of spot where they've come out and they don't seem to understand what the game is here and what everyone is playing it. We've got FanDuel and the operators and that, playing chess, and the regulators playing checkers. And it's because it's not their job to really understand it all. They need some good guidance. They just need some help. Who knows where this ends up?
So I had in mind to ask you as a follow-up if you could foresee a scenario in which a lot of regulated operators risked their licenses in favor of offering sports event contracts. But as you speak to FanDuel's decision as an inevitability, I'm more inclined to flip that question around and ask you to describe the scenario if you can see one in which regulated operators don't make the move to risk their licenses in favor of offering those sports event contracts.
Again, let's not forget, sports betting is a Trojan horse to iGaming. Are they going to risk iGaming? Are they going to be able to do iGaming under another premise? That's the key to all of this. Ultimately, the iGaming landscape will determine a lot of this. I don't see them even risking it. I'm sure as hell that Ohio will not take away their license and those millions and millions of dollars of taxes if they go into this space. I don't think any of the regulators are going to cut off their nose to spite their face. There's going to be some kind of workarounds. This is America, where backroom deals are done constantly, and you hear them, all this stuff come out. But I really don't think regulators are going to step in and do this, because what options do they have? They've been held ransom here.
And Joe, you've already taken to Twitter to share your point of view in response to this week's warning from Ohio that sportsbooks licenses could be at risk if they offer sports event contracts. So with Ohio and Nevada as new examples, clearly we've got some tension building between the CFTC model and the state gaming model. And now the market leader wants to straddle both of those sides. So what do you make of this emerging dynamic, and how do you see it playing out?
Well, I mean, let's face it, the states have really played themselves into a corner here now, haven't they, collectively? The response, I would say, to challenging the whole legality, the premise upon which the prediction markets operate through the CFTC has been rather weak. It's been left to, with the exception of cease and desist letters, which, I mean, I know one offshore operator, when I asked him about these C&D letters, he's like, we've been getting one a month every month for like 18 years. I don't even know if we put them in a drawer anywhere any longer. So that's a really weak response. As far as like getting into it, right now it's just New Jersey, Nevada, and Maryland have traipsed into federal court to try and do this. Everybody else was going to free ride off of those guys. And then this stuff started to happen. So now their only answer, instead of really contesting this thing on the merits, of course, now we're going to target the people who play by the rules. So let's threaten our licensees who are currently playing by the rules, paying our taxes, fair in our markets. And let's tell them that, well, it doesn't matter. Like, let's look at what Ohio said. Ohio went to the extent of saying, like, well, it doesn't matter if you screen out Ohio customers from your prediction market. If you take prediction market action in any other state, you're going to risk your license here. So you're telling people what they can do in other states. Okay. And there's been in the past, gaming regulators have reserved that right to make determinations about what you do, not only in their own mark, but what you do elsewhere. All of this is to say the states right now are caught flat-footed. They've managed to paint themselves into a corner where they wanted too much. Well, hey, they were too permissive. Let's start off with that. They were too permissive and they got bilked by, the FanDuels and the DraftKings of the world when the markets launched. Then as state taxes, budgets, they had bigger and bigger deficits. They were lazy lawmaking and tried to squeeze more and more out of sports betting. And now they've gotten it to a level where they're just bad faith partners, many of them, when it comes to their tax level. I'm looking at you, Illinois. You never know where it's going to go next. And so they have made themselves prime candidates, no pun intended, to get punched up like this when prediction markets come along. And you know what? You can sit there and you can say, like, it's not fair. CFTC never intended this. But the reality is right now, PMs get to operate. And what is the state's answer to that one? Because you know what? All of us I know did really well in political science class. We know all about the supremacy clause. And well, if the federal government comes in, if their laws come into conflict with state laws, well, guess who wins, right? And so instead of mounting a credible challenge in the courts to this, because it's not like CFTC has put up like an impenetrable wall of rules and regulations around this, or that Congress has given this a pretty healthy dose of enabling legislation. None of that exists right now. So it's really in the courts. But again, we just have New Jersey, Nevada, and little old Maryland contesting this in the courts while everybody else free rides. And so, you know what? Watching the states kind of feebly threaten their licensees, I just got to shake my head in total disappointment that we're not even 10 years into legalization, and it's just gotten wildly out of control. It's been completely mismanaged. It's really disappointing. And you just see this thing starting to gain momentum towards federalization. And yeah, to Adam's point, like, you're going to take my license, so then I'm going to be able to do exactly what you wanted to prevent me from doing. This isn't the 70s. This isn't brick and mortar casinos anymore. This is the digital age. And the states are just flat-footed. They're not moving at a speed. They don't have a facility, the dexterity to be able to operate in this environment, because they were happy to bring on these sectors, but they didn't give regulators the resources to actually police them or understand them. And they're getting caught for being lazy and cheap. And I just can't even tell you how utterly friggin' disappointing it is to watch this all turn into a mess.
Well, sticking with some emerging tension in the gambling space, the NFL on Monday held a media briefing on topics related to sports betting. Adam, the league shared its concerns about prediction markets, highlighting the issue of, quote, requirements to use consistent and reliable official league data, unquote, which of course is a massive revenue driver for the NFL. So, over a long-term time horizon, what odds would you give prediction markets to drive as much revenue for the league as regulated betting does today?
Very little because they're not enforced to even use it. And there's other options out there these days. I mean, Joe raised the topic of 10 years. I mean, the NFL's like Chicken Little, the sky is falling. No, it's not. Yes, it is. We're against gaming. We're for it. We're against this. We're for it. Like, make up your mind. Get on board with something. Have a backbone. Stick to something. What have we done? 80 something episodes and
I think we're in the mid 90s. Yeah.
90s and 60, 70, 80 of those have been on the prediction markets and Kalshi and all that like this. I mean, just sit back with the popcorn. I mean, I'm getting new headlines posted every day. You've got the leagues jumping in. You've got the regulators jumping in. I'll use the term again. This is a shit show and it's quite enjoyable just sitting back and watching it. And then here comes the NFL. Wait for the NBA to chime in. Wait for MLB to come in. And then, soccer leagues. We've been dealing with the data rights circus for 10 years or something. We've been the streaming for betting circus, who has media rights for TVs, all that continued on for how many years. And then when you get into the US, out of the US, Radars, Genius, Perform, they've all got different terms inside the US, outside the US. Leagues have gotten to bed with these providers, getting equity and all these kind of things just to take pennies for their product that's earning, millions and billions and all this. It's just, what the hell are they doing? They're all chasing pennies on the corners of the streets rather than just stopping, looking at their product, understanding what it is. Betting is just another vertical that you're trying to get eyeballs on your sport. Everyone's chasing eyeballs, whether it's FanDuel chasing eyeballs with different verticals, whether it's Robinhood chasing eyeballs, adding sports predictions to all their other markets that they have. Everyone's chasing eyeballs because more and more of these eyeballs, especially if you go 30 and under, 35 and under, they're not even looking at sports. I mean, they're not even looking at these things. They're on their phone watching people dance and do stupid shit and all these kind of things. Sports is ultimately in trouble with the viewerships and all those kind of things. The price of a sports team is going up and up and up and up. And now people are buying wiffle ball teams and pickleball teams and all these kind of things. So I'm lost. It's chaos. And we're just trying to survive in a business that's part of the vertical and ecosystem of that. They're the ones acting like headless chickens when ultimately we should be like, who's got the data? Who am I speaking to? Where am I chasing it? Get your shit together so we can just offer a good competitive product that drives revenue to wherever it needs to go. And let's move this thing forward.
And Joe, in the midst of the chaos, Adam spoke to another issue from the NFL's briefing was microbetting, which the league continues to pressure operators and regulators to outlaw. How much influence does the league have when it comes to banning microbetting? And how likely is it that we see a ban at the end of the day?
As far as how much influence do they have, I hope not much beyond the media and, media hand-wringing. I mean, right now it's really convenient, whether you're a state governor, a gaming regulator, the NCAA, one of the leagues, one of the players, to sit there and shake your finger at microbetting. They are shaking their finger at the wrong party. The legal, regulated industry are the only ones that are standing there right now. It's not the leagues, it's not media, none of those people that are standing there trying to ensure integrity. We're the ones policing it. We're policing their employees for them. And so what they're trying to do is it's like when you drop your kids off at school, right? And it's like, oh, did I just suddenly, like when your athletes are in a game, do you suddenly relinquish the responsibility for their behavior and whether they do right or whether they do wrong or something like that? I don't get to absolve myself of that when I drop my kid at school. Okay. So we create betting markets. They're athletes. They're in the game. They're athletes. Their employees are cheating, right? They're cheating, but it's our fault and it's somehow our problem. No, it's theirs. It would be they're just looking to try and, deflect responsibility. If it wasn't for us watching these guys, those guys would have cheated in unregulated venues, right? Maybe they don't get caught. Maybe none of these stories. Maybe Jonte Porter, none of that stuff. maybe none of this is ever heard from. And what would we hear? Like, oh, well, things must be going great in sports. They're just doing it for the love of the game, right? But because we've legalized this and because we've got our eyes open, because we're the ultimate victims, because where does the money come out of? It's not coming out of the NFL. It's not coming out of the states. It's coming out of the sports books. Our money is at risk when people cheat. So when we got our eyes on them to keep them from cheating, and then we let the leagues know that they're cheating, our reward is you guys need to get rid of that product. Stop tempting our players. Your players who are cheating are crooked and immoral. We didn't make them that way. They came that way. Okay? So I hope to God that people get past all of this media bullshit, blaming the sports books for this. Spot fixing's existed for, let's go to our resident historian. Adam, how long has spot fixing existed in the betting industry?
Well, I mean, it probably goes back as long as there's been betting, but definitely till the late 90s, early thousands.
Yeah, So this isn't a new thing. It didn't arise because we legalized sports betting. And what really is disgraceful is the lack of logic and scrutiny that some people who are supposedly so very smart, the people who run the leagues or run NCAA universities, people in the media, they're all supposed to be pretty smart. They seem absolutely ludicrously fucking stupid right now with their logic on how do we move this thing. So what do I hope? I hope this blows over, but it probably won't. And they'll continue to scold us. And then will they be successful? Yeah, they probably will. They'll probably be able to enforce some ban on micro betting and in-game betting. And then does it all go away? No, it all goes to...
Gets bigger and it goes bigger.
Yeah, it all goes someplace else. But then they'll have no visibility. There'll be no cops because nobody from, offshore or the gray markets are going to be calling up and saying like, hey, we think you got a cheater here. Will there be? No. They won't have any contact with them. They won't have anybody on the front lines policing this. But as long as they can stick their collective heads in the sand, I guess everything will be better, right?
Well, here's to hoping that everything will truly be better over time, however this all shakes out. I know it's quite the mess right now.
Hoping is not a strategy.
I'll let you guys outline this strategy to a more concrete action plan over the course of future episodes, but I think that's all we've got for this week. So to the audience, thanks as always for tuning in. Enjoy week 1 of college football, and with the NFL kickoff close behind, prediction markets, micro betting and all, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSuspects_, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn 2. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.